really is the time to get the plan wrapped up as close as we can get you to being finished. The better today. This is the last class. I do appreciate everybody's patience as we've been working through, the Go Crop upgrade. Seemed like much of an upgrade with all the trouble, but it is actually a better front end for Go Crop with more capabilities. So we're excited about it. Unfortunately, it's taken longer than we had hoped. But as far as we know, today we should be able, if you have everything in Go Crop, we should be able to review the plan, look for errors, make any adjustments, and then really hopefully wrap things up for you. What we aren't able to do today is kind of print the plan. So normally there all the information that you've entered in and that you can view and Go Crop, it will go into a bunch of printable reports. And those reports get printed and physically get put into your binder. Normally that's what we would review. But the reports have not been released yet, so we're not able to actually print the plan out. But again, all the pieces, as far as we know, are in Go Crop now, and we should be able to check over the plan and make any modifications to wrap things up. So what I wanted to do this morning, very, pretty quickly, is go through the pieces of the plan that had been missing before, or maybe not working quite properly, and kind of point out what I need you to be checking on today to wrap things up. And then if you get to a point where you feel like, yeah, we're done, this looks good, whoever you're working with in the classroom there can do a quick review of the plan, then I could look it over and we could get you a sign off sheet. And again, we'd have to print it out hopefully next week. Okay, so what we haven't really been able to do is check on the nutrient balance, and we haven't been able to view the P index. Okay, so those are two really important things that we need to see and view for each field to make sure you're meeting the requirements, right? So I'm going to show you that first. And then the second thing we need to look at is the manure drawdown. Okay, so there's a couple of items here. One thing we have to look for is that you can realistically apply the amount of nutrients that's produced on your farm onto your fields and meet all the requirements. Oh, I see Newport's on.
I know to run this. Yeah, the mic's not on.
Yeah, your mic is on. Actually, we can hear you. I don't know. Okay. So that you can utilize all the manure that's produced on your farm in 1 year. All right. So we need to check on that and make sure that you're drawing down all the manure nutrients. Okay. If you're not, you got to go back into your plan and adjust the quantities. All right. So let's start with nutrient balancing. So I went in back here. I don't know if I want to go back, to be honest. I can get back to where I am right now. But anyway, I went into the circle field and I'm down at the bottom tab, nutrient balancing. And you can see all to the right here, all the crop information that you've been putting in the plan, and all the information related to that field is over here on the right. So your crop details, the harvesting plans, the recommendations based on the soil test. And then here it has the crop removal rate. So think back a whole bunch of classes ago where we talked about looking at the nutrients in the soil and using that information to develop a nutrient recommendation for your crop. So we look at what's in the soil first and determine how much more nutrients we need to grow whatever crop you're growing. Okay, so that's what this is. And then in some cases, if you have, let's say, a high P index or a medium P index, and you're still wanting to put manure on those fields, even though the soil test doesn't call for it, you can only apply those nutrients based on what the crop is going to remove in that year. Okay, so that's why it's showing crop removal over here to the right. So above is based on what's in the soil and what the crop needs. And then below that, it's what the crop's actually going to remove based on in the biomass, based on your projected yields. Okay, and you can see those numbers are different as we've talked about, right? We're assuming that the crop is going to get some of its nutrients from what's already in the soil. And then in addition to that, you might need to add more nutrients to meet those needs, okay? All right, so below here is where you're adding in planned manure, so what you plan to put on the fields, and manure that will be utilized to grow the crop this year. So you put that in last week. And then also credits. So if you put on manure in 2023 or 2024, you'll get nitrogen credits for this coming year. We talked about that a few classes ago. So hopefully you've gotten those in if you want. And then also this is where you would put in any kind of nutrient credits that you would get from like a plow down sod or other crop residue you may be incorporating. Okay, so that goes here. Now you can see here, it says incomplete twice actually, and it's actually not incomplete. This is a bug. This is annoying. I get it. Like, why is this incomplete? We don't know either. We don't know why it's doing that. But it wasn't on our highest priority this week to fix this. So, you know, if you're concerned about it, have somebody check, just make sure it's in there correctly. But this is a bug. It's not turning to completed at this point. But I just didn't want folks to get worried about it. Okay, so hopefully you've put in all the required information. Now, over on the left, it gives you this table that kind of adds everything up and then provides you with that balance. Like how much more nutrients do you need to grow your crop? Or have you over applied nutrients and by how much? Okay. Below that, you can see it says nutrient and risk indices. So it tells you, you know, what's the risk of nitrogen leaching losses. You added that in earlier. It tells you the soil test phosphorus level. So remember, the higher the soil test P, the greater chance or risk you have of kind of losing that phosphorus. And then you have the Vermont P index. And this is the piece that we really need to pay attention to at this point. Okay, so we need to look at, are we supplying enough nutrients or too much? And then what is the P index based on what we're doing? And do all those things meet the needs of my crops and also meet the regulatory requirements? So I just want you to see that the Vermont P Index lights up. You can click on that and it shows you the whole breakdown. Okay. So it shows you all the parts of the P Index, everything that went into here. And if the P Index is high or very high, you're going to want to check this out, make sure everything is has been put in correctly. You'll want to check it out anyway, make sure the buffers, etc., are accurate. But you can click on it and look at every detail of the P Index, soil type, etc. Okay. Now, if it's not calculating and there's an error, you can open this up and look to see where that error might be. That can also be really helpful. Okay. So in this case, the P Index is medium. And if you remember, the medium P Index or high P Index, right, means that you can add phosphorus first to whatever the soil test recommendation is. Okay. So I'm going up here and it says that for this soil and for the crop being grown, we don't need any more phosphorus. There's plenty in the soil. I look down at the soil phosphorus quantities, concentrations, and you can see it's high. So there's plenty of phosphorus to grow this crop. We don't need to add any more, okay, based on that information. But we have this manure that needs to be spread. We also need other nutrients, right? I need some potassium here. I also need nitrogen, and I have manure that I need to put on fields, okay? So if you have a medium or high P Index, you can apply phosphorus in the form of manure and, fertilizer too. But the amount that you apply cannot exceed the crop removal rate. Okay. So you can see here's the recommended from the soil test. Here is the crop removal rate right below that. So theoretically, based on the P Index being medium, I can add up to, okay, should be slightly below at max, the crop removal rate. So I can put on up to 80 pounds of phosphorus per acre. And again, this is based on the yields and the crop. All right. Okay. So I've added manure. I've got some past year nutrient credits here. And I put on 35.6 pounds of phosphorus in the form of manure. All right. That is not exceeding crop removal, which is 8 pounds. Okay. So that is acceptable. So you can see the total credits of what you have put on is 142 pounds of nitrogen, 35.6 pounds of phosphorus, and 88 pounds of potassium. Now, I will say it's a little annoying that we're getting this detailed here, 0.4, 0.6. Again, this isn't a bug. It will round up in our next version. Okay, so you've over applied nitrogen by 22 pounds. You've over applied phosphorus by 35 pounds. And you've under applied potassium by 12 pounds. Okay, so let's dig into this a little bit and make sure that what we've done here again meets crop needs, regulatory requirements. So we're meeting the crop needs, right? More or less. We're a little over here. Is that a problem? Okay, so for phosphorus, no. Medium P Index, we're basing it on crop removal. We are not exceeding crop removal, okay? And you can see this below. This is the balance crop removal. We've over applied nitrogen by 22.4 pounds, okay? Roughly 20% more than the recommended amount. The requirements are that you are not to exceed the nitrogen recommendation by more than 10%. So we are over that 10% level. Um, Again, that's the regulatory requirement. So you may have to reduce the amount of manure that you're putting on here to meet that 10% mark. Okay. So the regulatory requirement is not to exceed 10% of the recommended nitrogen um, level. And for phosphorus, based on the P index, right? You apply to the soil test recommendation first, and then you cannot exceed crop removal for medium and high P indexes. If you have a very high P index, you are not to apply any manure, nutrients, even to meet crop removal. Okay, so that means very high means no more phosphorus, not from manure and not from fertilizer. So if you are fine with that, great. Just don't put anything on those fields that has phosphorus in it. If you need to add manure to those fields, then you have to look at how to decrease the phosphorus index. Okay. So you need to look back into the phosphorus index and see where you can possibly bring that very high down to high or medium. So there are different things potentially that you could do. As an example here, you're adding manure in the spring to bare ground. If you shifted manure application in the spring, actually to May, um, it probably would decrease the P index by quite a lot. April is considered very risky. You could increase your buffer width. You could change your rotation. So there's lots of different ways you could get that number down. But again, if it's very high, no more manure, no more fertilizer until you can bring that P index into something below very high. All right. So again, you should now be able to go field by field and complete the nutrient balancing, checking the regulatory requirements, and if you're meeting crop need, and make those adjustments as needed. Okay, so that's really what you're going to be focused on mostly today. Okay, the other piece, I'm going to go to farm assets. And I'm looking here at my manure storages. Okay, and again, if you don't remember how to do that, you can go over into the filter area and just filter manure storages. And it'll just show your different storages. If you go into these, I have to remember how I got there. Okay, I'm going into the pit, gives you the detail around the pit. If you go into the plans, okay, it shows you the drawdown. So you started with 5 million gallons, you exported 3 million gallons, and you have 2 million gallons available to spread on your land. All right. So you can see I've been spreading. Here are all the fields I'm planning to spread on. Okay. And over to the right, it shows you how many gallons per acre I'm spreading and then how many acres. Okay? In the middle, it starts to draw down the total amount of manure you have. So I started with 2 million, and right now I'm down to 1.2 million, right? So I've spread a little less than 50% of the manure that I have. So you need to come here, and that's more or less probably if you have everything in, I would go here first and see how much manure you've spread out of your total. Okay, so you again have to show that you have spread all of this manure that has been produced in a year's time. You can be above by 10% or you can be below by 10%. Okay, but you can't be at, I only spread 50% of my manure. All right. So you have to show that you can spread it all on your land and meet all these different requirements, P index, nitrogen, etc. All right. So right now, what I would need to do is go back in and apply more manure. I have to get this number down to 10% plus or minus of the total. And I'm not there yet. Okay. So if you're already over, you've spread more than what you have, you need to go back and readjust. Okay. You can't spread more manure than what you actually said you had. Um, and if you haven't spread enough, you have to go back in and add manure to fields. So, there can be minor nuances here, right? You have a 5,000 gallon tank and you say you're putting on 5,000 gallons an acre, but the reality is you never fill that tank all the way up. It's never at 5,000 gallons. It's probably at maybe 4,500, maybe 4,000 gallons actually every time you fill it up. So, you may be over spreading because your spreader is not actually full, right? Even if you're keeping records and you're saying, I put out 6 loads, and you assume that the spreader's full to the tippity top. So again, you have to go back and kind of readjust, figure out how to, take manure away or add manure to fields. And then go back in and make sure it's still meeting all the requirements. So this is sort of like a cyclical process at this point. You're checking the drawdown, you got to put more manure on or take manure away. Then you got to go back in and make sure you're meeting all the requirements, and you're getting the manure drawdown, right? So these are the pieces, the primary pieces right now that need to be checked. You need to make sure the phosphorus index has calculated, right? There's actually something there. You need to make sure you're in balance to meet, the crop needs and the regulatory requirements. And then you need to make sure that you've spread all the manure that you've produced or said that you produced. Okay. And then go back and adjust and fix things as needed. Okay. Going back here. Going back to assets. All right. So a good way to go through the fields is to filter them and check all the cornfields, check all the hay fields. Just make sure everything is entered and in, and go down the list. Just make sure everything's been completed and is making sense. And hopefully, most people are pretty close to finishing, but I do apologize for the delay on our end. Okay, so those are the pieces that you need to be checking. Maybe you've already gone through and worked on that. Working with folks wherever you're at. And if you get to a point where you want me to take a look at the plan, um, shoot me an email. I'll be on, also on Zoom, helping out as needed. And trying to think what else.
Heather, there's one thing, the setting that you see the nutrient balance based on crop removal is something they have to go in and allow to see. So we already set up the test account that way, but everybody else is probably not seeing that.
That's right.
So to do that, I think you have to go to the first step in your plan. If you go back to planning and they click on their plan. Then do you see that to the right, there's that box called plan settings. If you edit those settings and you go to show advanced, then that first box now says include crop removal and nutrient balances. Yep.
Yep, you didn't see my hand go up. Okay.
So people have to select that to be able to see that in the tables. Otherwise it won't show up right now.
'cause we didn't do that before. Okay. All right. So let's review that because everybody should be looking at crop removal rates. We do need to have those. So again, you're back at your plans. You open up the Vermont NMP. Okay, so you've got your checklist here. Go over to plan settings, as Sarah was just saying. Edit your settings. Go to show advanced. And then it says include crop removal in nutrient balances. And there's a yes, no comment here. So you can just hit yes. Go back. You do see on plan settings, and you can check this. It says crop nutrient removal included in the balance. So that's confirmed, and that should get you that crop removal piece in your nutrient balancing. All right. Okay. I would say reach out to me if people are ready to have their plans looked at. Sarah, can you think of anything else off the top of your head?
No, I think that's it at the moment.
Yeah, I think we're good. Again, whoever you're working with, most closely, as soon as we can print reports, we will make sure people are notified and we can get those printed and into your binders because as I mentioned, you do need a hard copy available on the farm, especially if you are regulated to have an NMP. And if you're using it to get funding of some type, you'll need it for someone to review. All right. Okay. Well, I'll let people kind of get on their way here. And unless there's any more questions, appreciate everybody's time. And again, sorry for all the delays here with Go Crop, but yeah, we're almost there. Okay. Susan, anything else on your end you need?
Nope.
Okay.
We are doing a quick survey on the NMP class that people have in your classrooms, or I'm going to send it out on email after. But nope, I will set up the breakout rooms just in case people still want to use those.
Okay. Yep. And like I said, I'll be here. So, yeah, sounds great. All right. Well, let's hope to get most everyone wrapped up. Thank you.